Hi Tasha, it's Andy Pierrotti with Gray Television, Investigate TV. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm actually just about a football field away from where you are. I'm across the street from the prison. Unfortunately, we have not been given the green light to interview you in person. I am glad that we're able to connect on the
I am too.
I wanted to just ask a few questions that you've probably been asked many times before, but just to get you on the record for us. What do you remember that night that little Bryan died?
Um, of course, I remember every bit of it, but I remember that, we were just doing what we usually would do. My daughter was, newly born. She had just come home with us, and my grandparents had come to get Dakota that night, and which was normal. That was what they did often. And little Bryan and I had watched The Brave Little Toaster. That was one of his favorite cartoons. And we had drank pink lemonade and had some popcorn and just had like a fun little night, just for us. And Devin was into bed asleep, and I had put little Bryan to sleep after we had did the movie and the popcorn and juice. And then I went to bed shortly thereafter, and I'm just asleep, and I hear like a really loud thump, and my immediate reaction from having a newborn, because my daughter, Devin, was in the bed with me, I thought, oh my gosh, Devin has rolled off on the floor. And so I jumped, and it was not Devin, and I was like, okay, so what is happening? And we had a room that was pretty much connected to little Bryan and Dakota's room. It just had like some swinging doors, and I just went through there, and immediately I see little Bryan right there, and he is having what appears to be a seizure. He's gasping for air, and I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out, and I grab him. I get to a phone. I call the hospital because that number had been memorized in my brain, because 3 weeks prior to that, every week I had been going to the hospital thinking that I was in labor with Devin. And the number was just there in my head, and I called, and I was like, I don't know what's happening, and I was trying to explain what it looked like was happening, and they said get him to the emergency room immediately. I called my husband. He came running, from work. He just lived he just worked 5 miles up the road, and he got there, and I was trying to do CPR on little Bryan. I do not know CPR, but I was trying because I was panicking. And by the time Bryan gets in there, he, takes over trying to do CPR. He tells me to get stuff for Devin to take with us. And we're getting in the van. We're rushing. Bryan carries him to the van. He accidentally hits his head on the side of the van. We have little Bryan laying in the second seat behind the 2 front seats, and I'm on my knees trying to continue doing CPR. We're speeding. We're on the interstate. We're getting pulled over. Bryan doesn't want to stop, and he's like, we're going off of an exit ramp, and he's slowing down long enough to yell at the people that, our son's not breathing. We're trying to get to the hospital. So we're about to take off, but before we can fully take off, the van door, slides open, and someone has ran and chased us and jumped in, which I later found out, I think that he was a volunteer fire department guy, and he jumped in and he took over doing CPR on little Bryan, and then we arrive at the hospital, and they took him from us and took him to the back we didn't know what was happening. And they just took him. The next thing I know, they're telling us that we need to have him transported to the Mobile Hospital, the USA Children's Hospital in Alabama. And, we all ended up going there. And the next day, they had let us know that he was gone. Bryan had to come, Big Bryan had to make a decision of did he want to donate organs and, when to have them take him off of life support. And, of course, he donated organs.
Yeah.
And
Tasha, thank you for going through that. I know that you probably have told that story a million times, and it seems like it's still very difficult to even say it. Before we talk about what's pending right now in the courts, and I want to get your reaction to a juror that I interviewed yesterday of what his thoughts are today. But I want to make sure that I ask this one question. I just want to make sure that I get on the record. Did you ever shake little Bryan? Ever?
never.
Never.
No, sir.
And did you ever hit him or beat him?
No, sir.
When you found out the medical examiner changed the death certificate from a homicide to an accident, what was your reaction?
I had many reactions. I was, I felt like I could breathe because I thought, finally they know the truth, including this man who initially I feel like his words are what convicted me. And I felt like finally science in medicine and the medical field has caught up, with everything I have said from the beginning. And to be quite honest, I had to kind of battle emotions of hurt and wanting to be bitter, but I had to find a path to be able to live in gratefulness that had happened, instead of living with, the latter, the opposite of that,
Did you think was there a moment where you were like, this is it, they're gonna finally let me out?
Oh, yeah, I most definitely did. But one thing I have learned dealing with the justice system is never as cut and dry as we would think. And I have an amazing team of attorneys, and my lead attorney, Valina, she always keeps me very grounded and lets me, because I did think that this is it, and my family thought this is it. And one thing Valina was sure to let me know is that this is awesome, this is amazing, this is great, but it's not the golden ticket.
Right.
And so then I had to sink those feelings into myself to realize that that's just not how our justice system operates.
And
you don't just...
Go ahead.
Well, you don't just have a doctor to come forward and, it's not that simple. He doesn't just get to change his opinion and change the death certificate, and they're like, okay, you can go now. We're sorry. It just doesn't work that easily.
We interviewed a juror yesterday involved in your original trial. His name is Daniel Mullen, and he convicted you. He believed at the time that the evidence presented in the medical examiner's testimony and ruling in a homicide was the key piece of evidence that he needed. He now believes, based on what he knows about the medical examiner changing his opinion and then learning more about the history of seizures in little Bryan's family and then his apparent seizures. He says that he says he made a mistake. What's your reaction to him when you hear him say he made a mistake? What goes through your mind?
That's heavy. It's really hard sometimes to process everything that has happened for the 25 years because, I think it's important that people should know that I'm not just beginning my fight. I have fought from day one. And so it's heartbreaking to know that the justice system let me down. They let a group of jurers down. The things that could have been said perhaps at the time of my trial that weren't said. All these feelings come flooding over me. But again, I have to continue to live somehow, some way with whatever life has handed me, right? We all do. And so this is kind of, the heaviness resonates with me as much as with Dr. Riddick. I have to look for a way to be grateful because all of these little things apparently to maybe the justice system, which each of these things are major and big to me, to my family, but maybe all these little things are finally coming together for the greater good, for people to know, the right people to know, a mistake has been made. An innocent woman is in prison, and it is time for the truth to be shown and to let me go. And so I'm choosing to be grateful, even though it is extremely heavy. It does cause me difficult emotions.
I mean, Tasha, he was one of two people on the juror that actually voted to send you to death. And he's now saying, with tears in his eyes, that he feels horrible that he almost sent someone to death for a crime he now believes did not happen.
I did not know the part about
what goes through your mind that a juror is now saying he made a mistake? What goes through your mind when you hear a juror say he actually thought that you deserved to die, but now says he made a mistake?
My palms are actually sweating because I didn't even know that part of it. It's absolutely heartbreaking. It makes me mad, It does make me mad.
Do you think so obviously the science of what we know about shaken baby syndrome has changed. A lot of opinions have changed, including obviously the medical examiner's office, based on how the evidence was presented to the juror. Based on how the evidence was presented to the jury, do you think do you blame the jury for making their decision based on the evidence that was presented?
I'll be the first to say yes, the defense was horrible. At the age that I was at 25, I myself didn't realize that my defense was that they believed that this was a shaken baby syndrome case. They just thought that someone else did it because I had always said I didn't do it and I don't think anyone else did it. So I didn't realize that was what this was being presented. But I think that even then there were facts available to a jury. The word shaken baby, to me that makes me feel like there's an infant involved. This was my 2.5-year-old stepson, and his height, his weight. The jurors could look at me, they could visibly see I'm little. I just think that there were components there that they could have found doubt somewhere. But I do understand what was presented to them at the time. You have, I'm someone who believed in the justice system before this happened to me. And so you have 12 jurors, people that come from different types of professions, different types of backgrounds, and they're being presented that there's this person sitting here and she's done this horrible thing, and they're showing pictures that don't relate to anything that they're being told. It was really Mongolian spots, and they have experts that are getting up there, my side and the state side, saying that this is shaken baby syndrome. So I guess you do have a point that, present it with what they had. Did they have any other choice? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that they had a vision and a visual of me, and they saw how old he was, his height, his weight. I think there just were some components there that no matter how this was presented, that there could have been reasonable doubt for people.
Why do you think the jury convicted you if you believe there was so much reasonable doubt?
I have a lot of thoughts on that. I felt like my jury was tainted.
How so?
I felt like there was a friend of the assistant DA that sat on my jury. There was a juror that knew a woman who was testifying on my behalf, and didn't raise her paddle during voir dire. The foreman from the jump gave me the willies. I don't know why. He just seemed like before he even spoke, and then after he spoke, I was like, no, I was told that if there was anyone that I thought just wasn't, just a bad vibe or anything, that I could tell my attorneys, and they would fight to have him removed or her removed, the person removed.
Tasha, I got less than 2 minutes. I want to get in a question real quick. What's your message to this judge that will be making this decision?
To please thoroughly read everything from beginning to end, not just what we presented today or, on July 1st and March 8th, but to really go back and compare and look, see how the science has changed, look at the facts, and be courageous. Be courageous and do something that is probably unheard of in Mississippi and probably unheard of in the south of Mississippi, and right this wrong, because an innocent woman is in prison. I am sitting here and I am fighting, and I'm not going to stop fighting for my freedom and the truth. And to please, if the science is...
You have 1 minute remaining.
If the science is as important as I think that he believes it is, then look at the science and pay attention, and you will see the truth.
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you think is important?
I think there's still always a lot left to say. But I also appreciate having an avenue for this story to be told. But I will always think that there's more left to say.
Well, Tasha, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Maybe one day we'll meet.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you too.
Bye-bye.